Let us pledge to each other, with this great lady looking on, that we can, and so help us God.
Hi, I'm Brianna Simpson. My Lest We Forget project will be over our former President Ronald Reagan. Sources are The President Electric, Ronald Reagan and the Politics of Performance. Author is Timothy Raphael. Second source is Ronald Reagan, Decisions of Greatness. Authors are Martin Anderson, Annalise Grabner. Historical highlights. What made Ronald Reagan unique was the fact that he was a Hollywood film actor. In his early years, he helped the Democratic Party by campaigning for them. Later, he turned more conservative and became Republican. He served as our 40th President of the United States from January 20th, 1981 to January 20th, 1989. He served 2 terms and accomplished quite a bit during his presidency years. I believe the reason we should remember Ronald Reagan in the 21st century is because of the differences he made economically. He was able to stop a nuclear war that could have been a disaster to the nation, and he signed a peace treaty called the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces. Reagan's time during presidency and why he is in our history books is because the bills and policies that he implemented when he served our nation as president. Ronald Reagan was born February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois. His parents were Edward Jack Reagan and Nellie Wilson Reagan, one brother, Neil Reagan. They eventually settled in Dixon, Illinois in 1920, and during Reagan's childhood, he performed and attended many plays. Ronald Reagan's first interest of becoming a Hollywood actor was when he took his Thanksgiving vacation during his freshman year at Eureka College. As he got into acting, he made a decision to go by his real name, Ronald, before he went as Dutch, which was a nickname his father gave him when he was a baby. Ronald was not only in film productions, but he was also on the radio, television, advertising, and even public relations. He began his career in radio in 1933 through the end of his presidency in 1989. Interests in politics all started by the film called Kings Row in 1942. Ronald had his first lead from a major studio production called Warner Brothers. Ronald was married to his second wife in 1950. Reagan was a Democrat, but in 1960 he became more conservative, becoming a Republican. Most probably had no idea that President Reagan personally wrote his own speeches. I know this was one thing that intrigued me and shows exactly what kind of president he was. He made a difference by helping the American people, and he convinced the Soviets to end the Cold War. And he improved our economy by economic policies. Reagan's ultimate goal was to eliminate nuclear weapons, and he convinced the Soviet Union that a nuclear war could not be won. Reagan was able to persuade Mikhail Gorbachev, Soviet leader, that a nuclear attack would be a disaster for the Soviet Union as well as the United States and Europe. He ended the Cold War and also cut taxes. And he was able to pass 2 major bills, which one was on budget and spending and the second was on taxes. Although during his time as presidency and his 2 terms, more than 10 years after his presidency, was Reagan's character primarily that he was called the Great Communicator. After Ronald Reagan's presidency, he wrote his own biography discussing issues that concerned him. Nancy and Ronald Reagan spent quite a bit of time on his ranch and dedicated Reagan's Presidential Library November 4, 1991. His last speech was at the Republican National Convention, and Ronald died June 5, 2004 after battling Alzheimer's disease for nearly 10 years.